Yeah. Hello, everybody. So I'm Chris de Dekker from Low-Tech magazine, and I brought more people. That's Roel Roskam-Abing and Maria Otsuka and Marie Verdey. Their role will become clear in the course of the talk. So we're gonna talk about our solar-powered website. But first I have to explain a bit what the website is about. So it's called Low-Tech Magazine. And maybe you can do the... This is why you start the magazine. Yes, so I don't like technology so much, or high technology, and that's why nothing works around me. Okay. So Low-Tech magazine is a critique on the vision of a high-tech sustainable society, which is summarized here. What is this vision? It's basically, we replace fossil fuels with wind turbines and solar energy, and we keep on living the way we are living. For example, we keep driving heavy and fast cars. The only difference is they're now powered by wind or solar batteries. This is quite a problematic vision. I will keep this short, but next one. Because solar and wind are very different energy sources from fossil fuels. The first difference is that you need a lot more space to generate a similar amount of energy. So fossil fuels are very compact. And yeah, solar panels, you need to basically cover the whole world to generate enough energy if we keep on living the way we are doing today. Second, wind and sun are not always available. So fossil fuels, you can use them whenever you want. The wind and the sun, yeah, depends on the weather, the seasons, the time of the day. And three, although wind and sun are often presented or always presented as alternatives to fossil fuels, they're actually not really alternatives. They are kind of more efficient ways to use fossil fuels, because you need fossil fuels to build solar panels, to build wind turbines, to build batteries, to build transmission lines. And for instance, with wind turbines, the blades are basically oil. It's plastic. It's 50 tons of plastic in one wind turbine. You cannot recycle it. So it's not really, it's not because it's renewable that it's sustainable. So back to the start, what we have to question, or what we have to change, is first of all what's in the left corner, the technology we use, the lifestyle we have. So you have to adapt the lifestyle and the technology to a very different type of energy source. And for instance, if you talk about cars, that means, next, making cars smaller, slower, less comfortable, and more fun. Because low-tech world is much more fun than the high-tech world. But we're not going to talk about cars. We're going to talk about the internet today. And yeah, next one. And for many years, we have been told that the internet is a sustainable solution for many things. For example, you don't have to buy a CD anymore. You're now streaming it or downloading it from the internet. You don't need plastic to produce a CD, and so on. But in reality, the internet has become a very big user of energy. And there's several reasons why the energy use of the internet keeps increasing. The first is that the content is getting heavier. So it's actually quite similar to what you see with cars. Cars are getting bigger and more powerful, and they accelerate faster. And you see a similar thing with websites. So in the course of 10 years, the average website has become 3 times heavier. And just like in real life, if you have to transport something from one point to another, the heavier it is, the more energy you need. And we see that happening with websites. The second reason is that, next one. We are basically always online. So yeah, I see nobody's looking at their phone at the moment, but it's pretty unusual these days that people are actually not looking at their screens. And 15, 20 years ago, if you wanted to connect to the internet, you had to sit on a desk in the library, at the office, at your home. and you had to connect with a dial-up connection. You paid by the minute, and that was, as a result, we were just online for a few hours a day, and that was it. Now it's from the moment we get up until the moment we go to sleep, we're connected. And the third reason is, well, capitalism. All the data traffic behind the scenes that is not about content, but it's like the advertisements, the trackers, the cookies. What else, Roel? Yeah, that's about it. And that's also a lot of data traffic and energy use that is just to make money, to harvest the personal data that we leave behind. Next one. And by now, most people have kind of accepted, okay, realized that the internet is maybe a problem instead of a solution, so it uses too much energy and we have to do something about it. And the solution that is proposed is very predictable, just throw more renewable energy at the problem. So we just kind of power the data centers with renewable energy, with solar panels, with wind turbines, and then it's solved. And for instance, Greenpeace, they make, every few years, they make a report that ranks the big internet companies in terms of their use of renewable energy. For instance, in this year, Adobe had the most renewable energy to power their data centers. And then you think, oh, that's great, it's green, but in reality, and that's next slide. As an example, this is a region in the Netherlands where a lot of data centers have gathered. And why? Because there's a lot of renewable energy available, especially wind power. And all these data centers are running on wind power, and they can say, hey, we're green. But as a result, they are sucking up all the renewable energy that is available in this region, in these provinces. And as a result, the businesses and the households who are living there and working there, they are back to fossil fuels. So there is a limited offer of renewable energy, and these data centers are just swallowing it all up. So that's not really a solution. You also have to address the reasons why the energy use goes up, not just trying to green the energy supply, because that's not enough. And Low-Tech Magazine, this is our old website, is of course part of the problem. We have been online since 2007 and with quite some traffic, so we are generating lots of carbon emissions, using a lot of energy. I'm basically destroying the planet by writing about how to save it. And so, yeah. My readers have often, in the course of the years, told me, like, it's quite ironic that you tell us to be critical of high technology, but then you use the internet to publish your articles. And I always thought that was, yeah, I have no other choice, of course. I can photocopy my articles, but then nobody would read them. But I also found I like to practice what I preach. And next slide. In 2017, the answer came in the form of two ladies from New York, one is sitting there, who wanted to do an internship in Low-Tech Magazine about redesigning the website. And also Roel got involved, who is drinking beers on this side. And we started the process of, can we build a low-tech website? Can we build a sustainable website? Is it possible? How would it work? It was basically just an idea, a plan we didn't really know, and it took us a few years before we got there. And the result came online in 2018, end of 2018. So this is the new website. Next slide. And so we followed the Greenpeace advice of powering it with renewable energy. So it's a solar-powered website, but we went much further than that. We also self-hosted the website. So it's at my apartment. It's off the grid, meaning it has its own energy storage. It has a battery. And it's also lightweight, not always online, and it has no trackers, no advertisements, no cookies. So in short, it addresses all the reasons why the energy use of the internet keeps growing. Next slide. So this is technical drawing of the system. It's a solar charge controller, the server where the website runs on, a solar panel and a battery. It's a very typical solar off-grid installation. But what is interesting in this is that you start actually with a limit, and the limit is a solar panel. Like you have to choose a size of solar panel. Next slide. And yeah, the balcony that we have is limited in size. You could put, well, you could put it full of solar panels, but then the balcony does not have other functions anymore. You cannot sit in the sun anymore. You cannot dry the clothes anymore. There's no space for plants, so you have to kind of limit the space that the solar panel takes. And this is the compromise we found, a 50-watt solar panel. And from the moment you have decided on, this is our energy source, you start designing within limits. And that is what misses in, say, the classical web design. People just design websites without any limit because energy use is not really an issue. Next slide. So on a solar panel of 50 watts, you cannot run a normal server because it would not, yeah, you need 200 watts or 300 watts, so that's not gonna work. So we had to go for a very lightweight server, and that's a Olimex A20 we chose, which uses between 1 and 2 watts. Oops. Ah, yeah, okay. Yeah, no, it's correct. And from the moment that's then a new limit, you are running, you have to build a website for a very lightweight, low energy server. You cannot run a WordPress website on that, it would instantly freeze. So then we had to find a way to, how do you build a very low data traffic, very low energy use website? And it took us, yeah, a while, so we tried different designs, and then eventually Marie and Lauren came up with a design that is inspired by the first website ever made. I'm not sure when it was made, 92? Anybody knows? Yeah, around early 1990s. So this is the first website ever made. It's still online. And the whole website we built is inspired by this one. And as you can see, the website has no images. Next slide. And that was something that we could have made it easy for ourselves. We could have made a website, just take off all the images from the website and go back to the origins of the internet, which was simply a text medium. Originally, the internet had no images, no videos, nothing was moving, it was all static. But in the case of Low-Tech Magazine, it would be a very bad idea because the images are an important part of the reason why people visit the website. It's very visual, lots of old archival pictures from past technologies and so on. So instead, we chose to radically compress the images. It's a technique called dithering. Marie and Roel can talk about that more later if you want to know. Next one. So it's a process where we actually use, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is the part that it's technical, where we use the browser as a web designer. So these days we have web designers who kind of design the whole page, but in the early days, it was basically the browser who was doing the web design. And so, for instance, we use supporting colors for every category that we put the articles in, like low-tech solutions, high-tech problems, obsolete technology. And the browser gives a color to that category. And it looks different on every computer because it actually depends on the browser you are using, the settings you are using for your browser. So the website looks different depending on who is watching it. This is another category. And this is, for example, how the font can also be changed. So depending on the browser, the font completely changes. The web design is really not forced onto the visitor, but it's determined by the browser. And that means that you save a lot of energy by not communicating all this information all the time. And we did a similar thing with the logo. So a normal website has a logo. Every time you ask for a page, it has to be downloaded. It's a request to the server. It takes energy. And we just used an arrow that is just a font, two fonts fused together, and it becomes an arrow. And it kind of refers to the idea that Low-Tech Magazine looks for inspiration in the past to kind of figure out ways to create a more sustainable world. And most importantly, it's a static website. So these days, all websites are dynamic websites, almost all websites, and that means that they don't really, they don't really exist. The website only appears when you ask for it. And then, I find that hard to explain. But so something with databases, I don't know. But so why do we use dynamic websites? Because we want to reflect changes. For example, you have Facebook, somebody likes a post, and then the likes go from 200 to 201, and you immediately see that change. And that's why we have dynamic websites. The problem with dynamic websites is that it takes a lot of computer power to generate the page every time someone asks for it. So it's the computer has to work a lot. And we made instead a static website, which is very similar to what you have on your laptop or your computer. You have folders with files inside, and you simply open the file, and that's the article you see. So what you actually do when you visit our website, you come into the server, which is similar to like a computer. You click on a document and you open it, and it's always the same. It always exists. You don't have to, the computer doesn't have to produce it every time that somebody asks for it. And so you easily use 10 times less energy than when you use a dynamic website. And so all these design decisions, they really add up. So it's all very small steps that we made, and sometimes it's kind of like, yeah, it's almost ridiculous. Like here we can win some milliwatts of power, but it really matters in the end. So for now, the old website is still online. And so we can make comparisons for the same article on different websites. And here you see, for example, the page size, which is how much it weighs, like how heavy it is. It's like a factor of 20 different. So you can, for the same, you can open this page 20 times before you have used the same weight as on the old website. And it's also much faster, by the way, although it was not designed to be fast. It's just an extra advantage you get. It's not only more sustainable website, but it's also faster, more user-friendly, and so on. So there's also no cookies, no advertisement, there's no tracking. You surf it completely anonymously. And it's not just the energy use of the server that goes down. It goes much further than that. So what happens nowadays, when we all need to buy a laptop every like 3 to 5 years. Why? Because we feel it's getting slow. It's like you get annoyed because your laptop is getting slower and slower. But the problem is not the hardware. It's not that your laptop is getting slower. It's that the websites are getting heavier, and not just the websites, but also operating systems. All the software increasingly gets heavy. So we get the impression that our computers get slower, and we buy a more powerful computer. And if everybody would design static, low-energy websites, this would not happen, and you would be able to work on the same computer for 20, 30 years. And at the same time, our website also makes our content accessible to people who have very old computers, very slow internet connections. So like if you go to Africa, for example, it's very hard to open the typical Western website because it's way too heavy for the connections and the computers they have. Yeah, Germany?
Yeah, I mean, like also countries like Germany have very slow internet, especially in rural areas. So it's not.
Yeah, and indeed some parts of the U.S. also, I guess, and well, some parts of Catalonia also. That's why Guifinet appeared. So that's also part of the solution. yeah. So there's another limit in this whole system, and that is the battery. So the battery is the most unsustainable component of every off-the-grid solar system because it takes a lot of energy to produce them, and they have very short lifetime. So a solar panel lasts for like 25 years, at least 30. We actually don't know how long they last, but quite some time. But the battery needs to be replaced every 3, 4, 5 years. And that is one, a lot of energy, fossil fuels, mining, factories that you have to run to just store power. And it's also very expensive. So a battery is the most expensive part, and you have to invest in a new one every couple of years. So what we did, instead of using a very big battery to keep the website always online, we decided to choose a very small battery and not keep the website always online. So depending on the weather, the website, if the weather is bad, the website goes offline. It simply disappears. You get this page. And then you have to come back when the weather is better. And in that way, you can save loads of energy costs. It gets cheaper and much more sustainable in that way. And it's not really offline a lot, so we have like uptime of the last year, 98% of the time the website is accessible. And it's usually, well, it's the downtime is in winter. So in December, January, it goes down because there is more bad weather. But as you can see here in the graph from 2020, that from around May to November, we are constantly online, like 6 months without interruption. And then in winter, it starts going down. There you see also the uptime of the website in relation to the weather. I don't remember if the gray is rain or the blue is rain.
Blue is rain and gray, I think, is cloudy.
Ah, yeah. So yellow is sunny, blue is rain, and then the other one is clouds. So it's very much kind of bringing the energy use, the website visiting in tune with the weather and the seasons, which depends, of course, where you are. We are in Barcelona, we have lots of sun. In Belgium, it's, it would be offline most of the time, and offline the whole winter. And you may think like, okay, that's a kind of weird way to solve the intermittency of renewable energy. So there's not always sun, there's not always wind, and then you just let it go offline. That's weird, but actually in a historical context, it's very logical thing to do, and we have been doing it for centuries. For example, the old-fashioned windmills, like this is one from the Netherlands. It's a sawmill, it's a factory. And it's something we can only dream of in modern times, like a factory that only has a windmill. It has no batteries, it has no other power source, and it works when the wind blows. And if the wind doesn't blow, people are like, okay, we cannot work, we go have a party, we stay in our bed, but we're not gonna saw wood in this factory. And the same happened with transportation. So for many centuries, the whole global trade was based on sailboats, and they didn't have batteries either. So if the wind blows, you can sail, and if the wind not blows, you do something else. You maintain the boat, you have a party, you visit the harbor, things like that. But of course, people are not really used to websites that go offline depending on the weather. Not yet. So we had to think of ways to kind of make it easier for our readers to kind of get used to that idea. And the first thing we introduced was a battery meter. So this battery meter that is here at 50% reflects the voltage of the battery. So you know exactly in real time how much energy there is in the battery of Low-Tech magazine. And if it's all the way up, if it's completely yellow, you know, it's safe to read. I can read Low-Tech magazine for hours. If it's all the way down, you may want to come back another time. And so in the whole design, we wanted to also make visible the infrastructure behind the website. That's also a reason why we showed the battery meter, because people have this idea like it's all in the cloud, and but we wanted to show that there is an infrastructure behind it that uses materials and energy. And that's why the dithering is quite in your face. I mean, you could also compress images without really showing that they're compressed, but we wanted to show the compression. We wanted to show the battery meter. And then another thing we added was the weather report, because of course the readers of Low-Tech magazine are not necessarily in Barcelona. They may be in Japan or in Australia, and they don't know what weather it is in Barcelona. So on the weather page, you can see, like, in this case, okay, the next 3 days I can read Low-Tech magazine without limits, without using anything, doing anything bad for the environment. And also, we have to change. So it's not just that we expect from the readers to adapt to the weather, but we also have to adapt to the weather. For instance, when I want to publish an article, before with the old website, it was ready and I published it. And now the article is ready, and then I have to check the weather report, like what is the weather in the next 5 days? Because you don't want to put up an article and then you get all this traffic and then it's gone. So you have to wait until there is like, okay, this seems pretty well period. In winter it can be complicated. But also other things like maintenance of the website. It's a static website, but it can be updated. And we do that by regenerating it every 24 hours if there is new content or if there's a new comment. And we do that at 4 in the afternoon because that is the period that most likely the battery is full already and we have excess of energy. So the battery cannot take more energy, and that energy is then used to regenerate the website. Also, the live statistics, we can see what happens on the website. It's very limited information, but you can see how much traffic there is, for example. We turn those off in winter because it takes too much energy. And then we don't know what happens, but we will see it afterwards. And then as a last, statement, we printed the whole website in a book form. Because of course it's, after all, like the internet is a great thing, but we can perfectly live without it. I mean, before we had content in books, for example, and a book, it's hard to, it's hard to beat. You can read it without electricity, without a computer, without the internet, without a civilization even. You can read it on the beach. In the sunlight, you can store it forever. You can give it to other people, and it's a bit of a middle finger to the internet. This is basically a similar thing, just a different format, a different medium, and at the same time, it's a source of income for the website. Because before, in the early years, it was all. Basically me working myself to death and earning money through advertisements. And that's not really, not part of the solution, let's say, using Google Ads. And on top of that, it uses a lot of energy. The ads these days are dynamic, are not static, so they constantly have to be regenerated. So it uses a lot of data and energy use. So it's not compatible with a low energy website. And in that sense, the book sales have replaced the advertising income. So we're now also we got rid of advertisements. You were gonna do this? No. I give the mic to Roel now, because Roel is gonna talk about how not to build a solar powered website.
Thank you, Chris. So one of the main gestures, of course, of this website was the fact that it's sometimes not available, and that's really okay. Like we have ways of going around that, but like you can plan, or you can download, you can buy it in in printed form. But this is really considered almost offensive by a lot of people. So like when we released this website, people were immediately trying to solve this problem. Like, oh no, you actually don't need to go offline. You can just do a bigger battery, or you can, you know, like bigger solar panel. But nobody gets the message of like, yeah, but going offline is not a problem. It's something that we did on purpose to keep everything very, very small. You know, like the smallest solar panel possible, the smallest battery possible, to have a very low materials footprint, because it's in the end it's the materials that we use for this infrastructure that are the biggest contributors. And so, kind of in response also on this kind of critique, another project was made, which was called the Solar Protocol. That was basically responding to one of the critiques that was said a lot, was like, yeah, but if it always, you know, like the sun is always shining somewhere. So like, why don't you just put the Low-Tech Magazine website on 2 places in the earth? But of course, that's not the point, because then you have like double the infrastructure, right? And then maybe that's not even enough, and that's just to stay online all the time. So to solve this problem of 2% of the time we're offline, which is like it's less than a week throughout the year, the solution proposed is to have, you know, like double the amount of materials required, plus all the extra wiring that needs to happen and everything. And so this project then proposes exactly to do that. So to make a worldwide network of all these tiny things to keep one page online. And we use this as a interesting example because it completely misses the point, you know, because it tries to solve a problem which it's not really there. But the fact that people try to solve this shows like how dependent we are, like how offensive it almost is that something can be unavailable some of the time, you know, that you cannot every moment of the day ask for something. And so this is another artistic project, but they have like, I think eight or something similar setups like the solar powered server to go from 98% uptime to 100% uptime. But that really also shows you that it's not just the case with this project, but also for example, Google data centers to be online, etc., all the time, like to have 100% uptime, so that it never happens that you visit the Google website and it's sometimes not there. You need to have 2, 3, 4, 5 data centers, you know, that are all redundant as well, which of course increases this material footprint. So, so for us, like the radical gesture is like, no, let's be okay with, you know, like opening hours for things. No, like you don't always need to have this thing. So yeah, that was what I wanted to share with that.
Yeah, so you're actually multiplying the infrastructure just for these 2%, and then you have to build 8 solar panels, 8 servers, 8 batteries. They can be a bit smaller, but still, yeah, you add so much energy use and mining and materials that you completely make it unsustainable. And we could easily also get to 100% by simply using a battery that's twice the size, and then it's solved. So yeah, what's wrong with a website that goes offline now and then? And in our case, you could go much more radical, because the problem with Low-Tech Magazine is that the readership is international. So if you say like it is only live when it's during the day, when it's sunny, that would be the most sustainable, just a solar panel and no battery, then the Americans would only be able to see it in the morning, and they would have to get up early, and we don't want to make it that hard. But if you have a local website, say you have I don't know, an NGO in Catalonia, which is only visited by people in Catalonia, you could do that, and your website, you could maybe keep it online until midnight, and the rest of the night it could go offline, because you have no visitors anyway. Nobody's coming to visit your website at 4 in the night. And yeah, that's also maybe, and then we can go to the question and answer. So we are also critical of our own project. So what we did is actually very stupid in a way. We built a whole infrastructure for one website, and that's not very efficient. You have to use kind of economies of scale. So what would be much better if you apply the same idea to a whole data center where you have a solar installation, you have several servers, and you have thousands of websites that are all run on solar power, and when the weather is bad, every one of those websites goes down and they come back when the sun shines again. And that would be much more efficient still. Yeah, I think we should leave that. So yeah, I think I kept it as short as possible because I think it's more interesting to do question and answer, especially because it's quite unusual that we're all together, and normally people ask me all kinds of technical questions that I cannot answer. And now I have the experts at my side, so hardware and images, web design, Marie, and technical support in whatever, another Marie. So yeah, if there's questions, we have something that we can throw at people. Ah, yeah. ¿Preguntas?
You still use your... Okay. You still use your normal website as your main website, and only the SolarPoint low-tech magazine is like a side project. Have you thought in changing this and use it?
So actually why Roel and Marie are here now is it's a work in progress. And the plan is to get rid of the old website, obviously, because the only thing we did now is doubling the ecological footprint, because now we have 2 websites. And also we doubled the workload, because now every time I publish an article, I have to make the layout on 2 different platforms, and that's really not so much fun, and it's really a waste of time. But it's quite a lot of work. Because we still have a lot of articles that are not on the solar, but they are on the old website. So this is why we are all together here this week, to make the final switch and then pull the plug out of the old website, and that's reason for another party then.
Okay. And you think you will get punished by Google if you do, because they don't like if you are not online?
Yeah, that's one of the things we thought we will get punished, but in the end we're not offline that often. So we have quite good, because now we're actually running the web not on the solar panel you saw, but on a smaller one, 30 watts, but it's simply better positioned. It's more to the front of the balcony, and our uptime was even better. So I don't have the impression we get punished for now.
I mean, one of the things that we have been doing, because the main lowtechmagazine.com has been, it's still online, but over the years, like Lowtech Magazine was published in many different languages. So there was a French website, there was a Spanish one, a Dutch one, and slowly we've been kind of transferring these ones already to the solar version, and there we see no decrease in traffic. Actually, we just get more traffic because I think it's more accessible website. So we're not too worried about that. But we have to see. Maybe it's a big mistake, and then we learn from that.
You can show the languages. There is also a Spanish version. It's a bit behind because we have much more volunteers for. We have much more volunteers for French translations, but we have a shortage of translators, volunteers for Spanish and Catalan.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is there any way to measure actually what is the carbon footprint that you have in the old system versus the new system? I mean, the regular on the cloud web server and your own server.
So what we did is to make a life cycle analysis of the solar powered website. So we calculated all the energy use that goes into fabricating the components. Because other people would say like we have a zero emissions website, but that's not true. You have to produce the components. So we calculated everything, but what we cannot do is measure the carbon footprint of the old website because we don't host it. So it's hosted at Typepad, which is like a kind of early 2000 blogging platform that still lingers on. But we cannot enter their data center and measure the energy use of their servers, and we don't know what type of servers they use. So it's, we don't know. We simply cannot measure that.
And have you considered the possibility that maybe, and just maybe, out of the efficiencies that they have just by centralizing all the things and hosting millions of servers, even with these huge and horrible databases that you showed before, maybe they are giving a lower footprint that you guys are doing?
Yeah, that's what I showed with the data center. Like what we built, we made a data center for one website. So we probably lose. And we actually, in this article, we made a calculation comparing our SolarWeb with the powering our web server, low energy web server, with Spanish grid power, and then we lose. Then it's more sustainable to actually the website that we built, but then plug it into the grid and use the Spanish grid power. Because Spain has actually quite low carbon emissions compared to, say, China or the US, and then we lose. But yeah, it's a statement, and but it's important. It's a good question because what gets most of the attention in the project is that it's solar power, but it's not the most important. The most important is that we build low energy websites, lightweight websites. That is what we want people to do, because we now see solar powered websites showing up everywhere on the planet, like in the Netherlands or Sweden, and you think, well, that's weird. There's no sun there. So what we want people to do is to think about, oh, maybe we should design a lightweight website, and how you power it is actually not so important.
Maybe to add that there is academic literature where they try to figure out, like how much CO2 is, let's say, 1 megabyte of data transfer. But because the internet is such a large, complex system, you get such, I think the most recent estimations have like a factor 10 of difference between kind of the lower bound and upper bound. So it's just really hard to say exactly how much is it, because it depends on so many factors, like from your device to how the local grid in your area is powered, etc. And because it's like, yeah, the internet is such a globe-spanning system, it's very hard to calculate. So that's number one. And we can measure what we do on our server. But of course, if you consider the total energy impact, it also has to do when you load the website, no? Like, because that's part of, in a way, the energy system. And we cannot measure that. That's impossible. But one thing that we can do is kind of reason, no? Like, the more we send and the heavier it is, the more modern equipment we need, or kind of more throughput we need. And computers have been becoming kind of more efficient over the years. Like for for the same unit of energy, you get more computing power. But we've not been using these gains to lower, the total need for energy. Instead, it means that, okay, we have a faster computer, now we can double the size of the websites. But if you use a faster computer and you keep the website size the same, it processes much quicker. So the whole thing loads faster, etc. So you get all these kind of benefits that people are looking for. But so you cannot calculate this, but you can kind of reason that by keeping things small and like also making a lot of design choices. Like a lot of big platforms, like YouTube will be very efficiently run because they have huge energy bills, and then these kinds of platforms, no, on these data centers. But other choices are made. So, for example, on Instagram, when you scroll it, all the videos are automatically playing. So they're automatically downloading, even if you don't look at them. So there's a huge waste in that, and then it doesn't matter how efficient, you know, is your data center, if that design component is already kind of wasteful in itself, and it's of course wasteful for other reasons. And so that's why we're really stressing like more the kind of design choices you make rather than focus really on the kind of the solar powered aspect.
So yeah, here you see the calculation we made for the setup that we have now: 168 watt-hour battery and 30 watt solar panel. It's every year we use the equivalent of almost 3 liters of oil. So the whole low-tech magazine in terms of fossil fuels costs like 3 liters of oil per year. That's the fossil fuels we use to produce the components over their lifetime. So it's like driving a car for 50 kilometers. That's my footprint. Because I don't drive cars, and yeah, until last week I didn't fly. I'm not gonna talk about that because it's a tragedy and a trauma.
My second is more related to the practicity of this. Is there, I guess, like a handbook if I want to put my website in and imitate you guys? I guess there is like an article where I just follow instructions and so on.
Yeah, we have a whole, so it's an open source project. I think you have to go to the English. Like we still need more translators in Spanish. So the whole project is documented. All the technical information is there. It's open source. You can replicate it, and many people did actually. And yeah, we will do the same now with rebuilding the website. We will also put that documentation online. Yeah, here are some extra links. So, I mean, looking at how many people copied it, it's useful, that information.
I think something that we still talk about in terms of like the process of making this website though is like, there really isn't like how to make a low-tech website or how to make a solar website. I think the idea that we were trying to communicate here is that all those decisions have to be very context specific and like respond to this, like the parameters of your particular project. Yes, there are like sort of tips, you know, that you can follow to keep, you know, the image sizes small and things like that, the number of requests low, but I think the idea is that you want to make your design choices very specific to the project. Like, you know, obviously, like they were talking about not doing a solar powered website in the Netherlands or, you know, in Sweden or something. And so I think we put this up just to explain what we did, but not necessarily so that like it can be perfectly replicated everywhere else, more to illustrate the kind of thinking we did behind the scenes, I think.
I personally think that is just a very good idea for people or projects that are already kind of off the grid, that they already have their solar systems and they're like, okay, I have this extra, I don't know what's happening with this. I have this extra power capacity that I can use for this, and there I believe that it's actually a good footprint.
Because the apartment, it's not just the website that's solar powered, also the apartment, the lighting, and my office. And one idea would be to actually connect the website to the rest of the system. But then it becomes really a different kind of dynamics in the sense that in the winter, when there's little sun and energy, we have the choice to either keep the website offline or sit in the dark at home. And then we get a kind of extra possibility to interfere with the weather, say, like. And another thing we, like with Marie, we built, that's the project we did later, we built a bike generator. And you could now say like, okay, if the weather is bad, we're gonna sit on the bike generator and we keep it online. If it's important, if there's high traffic, I can pedal for hours just to keep the website online. So there's many ways to kind of integrate it into your household or whatever it is. But for now, we keep it separate because it's just in itself a very interesting research object, like to measure things. But it would be more logical because, again, for the same reason that we should build the data center, that's now, I have a solar installation for the lighting and the office, and then I have one next to it for the website. And sometimes the website goes down, but the lighting system still has energy because we're not home, for example. And then, yeah, you could do it more efficient like that.
Wow, thanks. Hi, I'm Tim, and I've got a question about the funding of the project. You told us that you sell the printed version of the magazine. By the way, I have it at home. It's really nice. Nice designed as well, I think. I know that you use Patreon as well, but as far as I know, I mean, does Patreon play a role in the funding of the project for you, or is it just?
Yeah, it brings like say €350 a month. But I'm also not offering anything. So the idea of Patreon is that you give like exclusive content, or you send stickers or posters, and I promise those things, but then I don't do them.
I think there's another problem, because I don't see any button or something that tells people to get to the Patreon account, right? Yeah, donate. Okay, well, that's true. Yeah, but I think Patreon became something like a synonym for supporting people, and especially in the US, people really get. Yeah, it's 2 clicks away. Like, you have to click twice to get there, right?
No, obviously the financing is it's a chronic challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he has them already.
Sorry?
Yeah, that's difficult, of course. Also, yeah, I guess there are grants for that, but I'm really bad at finding grants. I don't know what to say, but especially since my girlfriend is sitting here. She likes the question about money.
All right, thanks.
Otherwise, I'm more free to speak about it.
I'm also happy if you have buys or...
Yeah, I run a Patreon for my platform, and it works very well. So if you have questions about that, let me know.
So how much you earn with that?
4,800.
Really, per month?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to talk to this guy.
I wrote you an email last week. So,
Really?
Yeah.
And about?
Because I wanted to have a coffee to speak about this with you, so do it.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe you did.
All right, then we have if a beer is okay, then
For sure. All right. Who's next?
Actually, it's one problem. Like, that is something that we still didn't solve. We're now rebuilding the website, and we are addressing several issues. Like, before we can kill the old website, we have to solve some problems. Like, the dithering is great. Like, many people love it, but it doesn't work for all images, for example. That's one thing we want to solve. And now I totally forgot what I wanted to say. Yeah. But so it's if you want to replicate a static website, there's not really an accessible tool for it. So there's not a kind of alternative such as WordPress that everybody can build a static website. And you have to rely on people who are experts in the field, like Roel and Marie. And those people are usually very expensive to hire. So I can also only do this because they volunteer for that, and they're not really charging 15,000 euros to build it. So in that sense, what we really need is someone who builds like a kind of WordPress-like system that makes static websites for everyone accessible, because that could make a real difference.
Yeah, I'm currently researching for that, and I'm using Hugo quite a lot.
Yeah, that's what we're moving to now.
Ah, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
Hugo is amazing. It's super simple, and I don't know how
Yeah, but-
commenting works, like having a conversation. I am not that deep in the field, but Hugo is amazing. It's really nice. We were speaking about this just a moment ago. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, that's what Roel and Marie also say, but I still find it very complicated. As a non-IT person,
Yeah, you gotta code a bit, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
and that will, we also had discussions about that, like what would be the solution, that there comes a more accessible software tool, or that people get more aware or more learn to use computers in a decent way instead of just clicking on buttons and not understanding what they do. I think both views are valid, no?
This is cool. Okay. There's another. Okay. There's another engine that it's called Publi. That it's the only one that I know of. That maybe you can explain it better because it's your field. But it has like desktop apps, right?
It has a graphical user interface for a static site generator. Yeah, I think there's definitely a big gap between because basically, other than that one, I think all static site generators require you to be comfortable with terminal use. Like they're all command line interfaces, and I think Publi has a pretty good interface for that. I think one of the things, it might actually work somehow with Low-Tech Magazine, but whenever you have a graphical user interface, you have to make a lot of assumptions, basically, right, about how people are going to use the tool. And I think even with something like WordPress was developed as like a blogging tool, right? But now people use it for lots of different things, and as a result, like it's become a very bloated system. And I think Publi is also very much based as like a blogging platform. And I think having some kind of tool where it doesn't make as much assumptions about what kind of content types you're going to put on the site will be very useful. Yeah, and I think in our case, like with this new transition into the new system, the biggest priority we had was to increase the speed of site generation with the additional amount of articles that we're planning to host. So like the original site, like it was really just like around 100 articles that we were hosting, but then, you know, with all the translations and additional articles, it's like 10 times that now. And so Hugo came up as like a really good candidate for speeding up that process. So we are also still talking about like having that graphical user interface layer on that at some point, but Chris has also gotten very comfortable with like markdown editing, and I don't know. It's it has become less of a priority in this process, but I know that will help static site generation be something that more people can take part in if there was a good tool for that.
Oops. For Markdown, there are pretty good tools there right now. So, for example, I use for Markdown Typora, which is a pretty straightforward and super easy to use editor, which is very similar to, let's say, Word. So you don't have the code layer. You can write the Markdown syntax code thing, but I think it's pretty easy to learn, and anybody can design layouts with that. Right? It's really nice. So. Just a hint, Typora. I think it costs €7. Yeah.
Yeah, we also, I don't know if that works. I think I was using Netlify CMS for my old generator, my own website. And that's also something that is interesting. And I think they are now developing, it changed, like, it's not to Netlify anymore. And they're developing like a beta version that you can locally host. Because also like, this tool exists, for example. So this is a platform where you can write, there's an interface to write, and then it will write a markdown file that then the static site generator can take, and then it will make the website. So it kind of, for the not to build it, but to use it as a writer, as a content developer. It's really good, but then now it's hosted on Netlify, and hosting it on Netlify, which relies on Amazon servers, kind of feels very contradictory to the whole content of that website. And of course, we can also think, okay, Amazon has very big servers, so they are very optimized. I think it's just about also thinking it would be even more, would save even more energy if we would actually locally host it, for example, because maybe only Chris needs to have this nice interface to kind of edit, then really see automatically before he pushes it, and then only the HTML files that the website that people are actually accessing needs to be online, and that's the one that are on the server. So I think it's just about, yeah, which tools, and then, as you said before, like how to try to not overbuild it for the use we have, and kind of like have this discussion of like what is actually really necessary and not adding anything on top. But it's definitely an ongoing situation, the conversation we have about, yeah, as the tool and the kind of community around this static site generator and like light web website kind of develops, maybe this kind of project can also develop and grow with them. Yeah.
Okay, I go. I want to say that I read Low-Tech magazine via RSS, so it's always online for me, and I get notifications. I have it configured so that it just checks once a day, so it's not an issue.
Maybe you want to explain what RSS is for if not
Yeah,
everybody knows.
sure. RSS is an ancient standard from the internet that it's just like a structured file that says, in this date, from this date I have this article, and you've got, here is the first line. This other day I had this other article, and that's it. It's not much more. And it's a standard, so even if it's a WordPress or this site, most of websites, or well, not Facebook, not Instagram, not Twitter, they don't like it, but most of decent websites have it, so you can check for and even download the articles without having to open the browser and all this stuff. Yeah, and it gets downloaded to your device, so you can have it whenever you want without wasting more internet connection. Yeah. And well, it's something that I like, and I wanted to ask also if you have, maybe it's a bit niche also, but if you have considered Gemini, maybe your role.
Yeah, we don't consider this because it doesn't do images.
It doesn't do?
It doesn't do images.
Images, oh.
But maybe I mean to continue on this because we have a page about offline reading, and the books is one, but this RSS, this feed reader is another strategy. You know, like it's a way to automatically download content from websites. So that's also what we encourage people to do, like subscribe to the website, because then.
I took it up.
Oh, it's off.
Yeah, sorry. I
Okay.
need to sell books.
Okay, yeah. Don't subscribe to the feed reader. Buy the book. Very good.
Sorry, me again. One more
Okay.
idea. You could maybe also add a download as PDF button, so you can optimize the CSS to make sure you just it looks nice. So you just hide the navigation or all stuff, and just make all the articles downloadable as a PDF. That would be.
The articles already actually have print styles, so that if you do want to output each article as a PDF, like if you want to save it as a PDF or print it from your printer, it has some basic formatting. It doesn't have that feature to like put all of the articles into a single PDF, but each individual article does have those style sheets, and that's definitely a good consideration.
Yeah, actually, people have asked for a PDF version, and the problem with that is then if you design it as the book, then you give away, others can print it. So it's like the whole low-tech magazine is basically about giving away everything. So we never had a paywall. I will always refuse that. While most magazines these days online, they have paywalls. You just don't get anything unless you pay. But of course, I need to, in some way, finance the writing. Otherwise, it's over. So there I'm a bit, and also you could try to prevent it with digital rights management, but that's then also kind of not something that I would like. So it's a bit difficult to do that at the moment. But if there's a way to do it without, without losing the income, then well. But anyway, we're gonna solve that later with the beer, because you're gonna tell me how to earn €4,000 a month. I think it's time for beers. No? Or are there more questions? I'm just thirsty. Ah. The.
Thank you. So it's maybe an amateur question, but is there any sort of limit to the amount of content? Like, do you need to cut content, or is this non-related to like the amount of content or the amount of articles? Like, at some point, are you thinking of cutting them or deleting old stuff, or?
I mean, theoretically, the hard drive of the server can get full, but text and compressed text and compressed images are so small that it's not yet a kind of reasonable possibility.
Yeah, that also makes it very hard to hack, because they try to, maybe you can explain, they try to get the site offline by hacking it, by...
Yeah, people try to DDoS the website a lot.
But good luck. It's so efficient that it takes you a long, long time.
Yeah, we found that like traffic has much less of an effect than like weather, basically. Like consecutive days of bad weather will bring the website down, but lots of traffic doesn't actually have as much of an effect.
That was really a surprise. So if there is, say, 2,000 visitors a day, or like say 5,000 or 50,000, you don't notice. You don't notice the difference in energy use if you have loads of traffic. That was really, but also like imagine you are a big, say the Guardian or the New York Times, and you switch to a static website. You can save billions of, millions of thousands. I don't know. You can save a lot of money with hosting, because you can host a very high traffic website on a very minuscule server with almost no hosting costs. And I had like I still have another website. It's called No Tech Magazine. It's running on WordPress, and it also ended up on Hacker News now and then. And then I had problems with my host, who immediately blocked the traffic and said, "You're gonna pay 3 times more for 1 day of high peak traffic." That makes no sense. So in hosting, it saves a lot of money also, and it could, for big companies, it could make a lot of difference. And many websites could actually be static, because not all of them, but most websites don't change that often. More questions? Yes. you.